Welcome to part 3 of our literary terms review, where we're going to cover the D's and the E's, including denouement, diction, epigram, epigraph, and euphony. So as always, we're going to set them up and knock them down. Let's get started. Let's start with denouement. You just feel fancy being able to say it. It has a French origin, but it's not a very fancy meaning once you know it. Denouement is simply how, whether it's in a movie or in a play or in a short story, how all the strands of the plot are kind of brought together at the end and you have resolution when the story or the narrative has finished. That's a denouement. So denouements are pretty easy to recognize. I mean, if you think of Romeo and Juliet, the denouement is when the Montagues and the Capulet parents were standing there seeing their dead kids, and they're like, ooh, I guess we should try to get along. Or in Spider-Man Homecoming, when Spidey turns down Tony Stark and decides to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. That is the denouement of that movie. So diction is a pretty important in terms of writing and speaking. It's the style and the tone and the manner and the word choice that you choose depending on how you want to come across. So you consider your audience and you consider how you want them to view you as the speaker or as the writer. And so your level of sophistication depends upon what you're trying to accomplish in your writing or your speech. So if you want to be more casual versus more scholarly, you would use different diction. If you're writing for maybe teens or younger, you would use one type of diction, maybe perhaps a little more understandable, for like young kids, simple sentence structure and simpler words, versus trying to be more sophisticated for maybe a higher level audience that's more educated. So that's why diction is so crucial. And we can look at a piece of work and really try to determine, who's this meant for and who's the audience based on the diction of the piece. I'm going to read 2 lines from To Kill a Mockingbird. One from Jem, who's a young boy, probably 12 or 13, and then one from his father, Atticus, a lawyer who is in his 50s. And just the way that it's spoken or written, you can totally tell that it comes from 2 different ages, and that's because of the diction. So listen to Jem's first. You can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family, and they're still kin to you no matter whether you acknowledge them or not, and it makes you look right silly when you don't. And then here's his father, Atticus. They're certainly entitled to think that, and they're entitled to full respect for their opinions. But before I can live with other folks, I've got to live with myself. The one thing that doesn't abide by majority rule is a person's conscience. So just the level of word choice and some of the slang that's put in there, you can totally tell that one is spoken from a younger, less educated person, and then the other is from an older, more highly educated person. An epigram is a short, brief, to the point statement that is to communicate an idea, usually in a clever or amusing way. So I'm going to give some examples of epigram from one of my favorite authors, Oscar Wilde, who wrote The Importance of Being Earnest. So here's one of them. He says, I can resist everything but temptation. All right, kind of funny because temptation and not being able to resist it means he can't resist anything. He has no willpower. Another one, there's only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. Right? No one likes to be gossiped about, but people also don't like to be ignored. So, funny way of expressing that. And the last one is, experience is the name everyone gives to their mistakes. I mean, pretty clever, right? Because we make mistakes and we hopefully learn from them, and that's what our experiences are. So there are some great examples of epigrams. Sounds really similar to epigram, but an epigraph is different. It is a short quote or perhaps a saying, could be a short passage from something else that's put at the beginning of a book or the beginning of a chapter that is not directly tied into the narrative of the chapter. However, it does connect to the theme of the chapter. It's trying to communicate something about what's happening in the chapter, even though it may not have to do anything with the action within that chapter or the book. Now, a book that is loaded with epigraphs is Into the Wild by John Krakauer. Maybe you've heard of it, but at the beginning of every chapter are one or two quotes from a lot of different stuff. Some of it is actually from the person that is the focus of the book, Chris McCandless, who was found dead in Alaska in a bus. Some of it is from songs. Some of it is from letters he wrote. There's all manner of things. Some of it's from other novels by like Jack London and Leo Tolstoy, who McCandless, the subject of the book, was really fascinated by and into. So throughout the book, you have these epigraphs that tie into what's being talked about in the chapter, but are set apart from the actual action of the chapter. Now, you might like the sound of this. We are on the last word of this video, and that word is euphony, which is a combination of words and sounds which are pleasing to the ear. So an author may want to use euphony in order to create kind of a pleasant mood or tone in a passage that he or she is writing. And so that's the idea behind euphony. So an example of euphony, besides just this video, listening to the melodious strains of my voice, so soothing, I'm going to pull from a Shakespearean sonnet, number 18, and he is giving, it's basically a love sonnet. So I'm going to read a few lines of that, and you're listening for like just soothing sounds, long vowels, and things like that. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. And summer's leaf hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. Right? So soothing, melodious, that's euphony. And there you have it. The definitions for the day are D and E lit terms. Thanks for watching.